Good evening, Board of Directors, Superintendent Larios, staff, and guests. Thank you for joining us this evening for our October regular board meeting today. It is 5:45 p.m. I now call this meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have our agenda today in front of us. Do we have any amendments? Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second. Is there any discussion? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor of adopting that, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. We now have an agenda. At this time, I would like to invite the Department of Student Services to present their recognition.
The board will pass those.
Okay. I'm Michelle. I'm the Student Services Director, and I'd like to recognize today 3 individuals who are from Heritage Elementary School. We have a reading specialist, Alicia Lopez, and we have 2 learning specialists, Ann McCormick and Kristen Hall. And I'm recognizing them because they have been collaborating together in order to create an inclusive intervention system at Heritage, which includes all students who require reading intervention across the building, both special education and general education, and students on 504s that are all students with disabilities and general ed together, so that they're integrated to receive their intervention services. And we're really excited about the work they're doing inclusively. So if the 3 of you could come up, that would be great.
Thank you.
Is there another one?
Oh, okay.
We can just have you stand over here. Yeah, just come. We're gonna take a picture of you. Yeah. Thank you. I'm sure. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 1. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Here, camera.
We don't want to cheat.
No, don't cheat me my time. Next, we will have the Safety Operations and Communications presentation of their recognition.
So if Daisy Tapia Gonzalez would like to come up, please. I want you up here the whole time, so thank you. So if you don't know Daisy, then I don't know what you've been up to, because if you haven't seen our Instagram posts or seen our communication or been to a single event in your school, then you might not know who she is. A level of professionalism that she presents when she goes out. Her work is perfection. It is top notch. She is nonstop, like the Energizer Bunny, at absolutely everything, and could not ask for a better colleague. She may be in my department, but she is every part my peer, and I learn as much from her, probably more than I probably teach her, from all the technology and everything. Very, very blessed that she is in my department, but our district is very, very blessed that one of our own who decided to go away, get an education, come back, and then contribute to our community in a way that is ultimately probably one of the most important, in giving back the communication and letting our families and people know what's going on. If you do not follow us on Instagram, you need to follow her work and what she's doing and the celebrating that she has been doing for our schools. It wasn't there 5 years ago. It just simply wasn't there. And I can't take the credit for that. It's all her, and she's just amazing at what she does. And so I'd like everybody to please give her a big round because she is lifting communication. So it's absolutely awesome. So.
Yeah, there we go. Three, two, one. Oh, one more. One more.
One, two, three. One, two. Go.
Who asked for Casey? Got it? The next item on the agenda is public comment. Looks like tonight we have 4 public comments. So I will read this statement. Thank you for being at the Woodburn School District Board meeting tonight and for sharing your comments with the board. Hearing from our families and community is important to us. During this section, the board role is to listen. We will not be engaging in dialogue with folks making comments. When follow-up is warranted, that will be done through our superintendent in collaboration with myself, the board chair. There's some more here on the second page. As a reminder, we modeled the way for our children. Please keep your comments respectful and do not personally identify staff or students by name, as it may violate personnel and student privacy laws. We want to leave time for everyone, so please keep your comments to 3 minutes per person. We have a timer set for your convenience. Thank you. I would like to invite Carol Kramer up to read her public comment.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Carol Kramer, a special educational assistant at Heritage Elementary School, yay Heritage, and Secretary of Woodburn's Classified Employees Union, OSEA Chapter 25. In conversations with classified employees across the district, there is a very real anxiety about the possibilities of ICE presence and raids in Woodburn. ICE has already taken individuals from Woodburn, and the constant fear is, who's next? It's an existential dread. Our union is grateful to be working in a variety of capacities in solidarity with WEA as part of the rapid response team. To give perspective, our most important job in the district is to keep our students safe, full stop. Classifieds are the ones who have eyes and ears at every work site in the district, from maintenance and groundskeepers to office personnel. Classified homeschool contacts are in the home supporting families. Health services personnel are an important link for students with health issues. Campus monitors and office personnel are first lines of safety for every work site. IT services are our district-wide communication highway. There are many more connections than these. Our classified web of organization is massive and already in place for communicating, reaching out to students and families, and again, having eyes and ears on every work site in the district. We look forward to this teamwork with WEA that is here to meet this moment. Thank you.
I would like to invite Tony Salm to read his public comment. Good evening.
I'd like to begin by recognizing and sincerely appreciating the district's initiative to address immigration-related concerns in our school community. It's heartening to see leadership acknowledge the need to support immigrant students, families, and staff, and to make our schools welcoming and inclusive spaces. Providing information, communicating compassion, and ensuring that everyone who steps onto a campus feels safe are important steps in the right direction. We value these efforts and see them as evidence that the district is listening to our community's needs. However, while this initiative is an encouraging beginning, it falls short of the stronger, clearer protections proposed in WEA's Article 32 on immigration, safety, and related protections. The district's statement expresses good intentions, but Article 32 transforms those intentions into concrete commitments. It sets out specific enforceable standards that ensure our schools remain truly safe spaces, free from unnecessary immigration enforcement, and where due process and human dignity are respected. For example, Article 32 spells out that immigration agents cannot enter school property or access records without a judicial warrant signed by a federal judge, an essential safeguard against intimidation or confusion. It also establishes protocols for how the district should respond if enforcement agents arrive, how educators and families should be notified, and what rights staff have during such events. WEA's proposal goes beyond reassurance. It guarantees procedures, timelines, and protections that make safety real and reliable rather than symbolic. In addition, Article 32 recognizes that the safety and dignity of our immigrant community extend beyond what happens inside our schools. It protects educators who are in the process of seeking legal status, ensuring they cannot be disciplined or terminated while navigating complex immigration procedures. It provides job-protected leave, privacy safeguards, access to legal and translation support, and a commitment that the district will sponsor eligible employees for visas or residency. These are tangible actions that move from empathy to advocacy. The district's initiative, while important, primarily addresses the environment within our buildings. Article 32 invites us to go further to ensure that families and staff have meaningful protection and support wherever they are, not just when they're on campus. This includes collaborating with community partners, providing language access, and ensuring that immigration status never becomes a barrier to participation or fair treatment. So we thank the district for taking this first step, and we encourage continued dialogue and collaboration with WEA to bring the district's policies in line with the comprehensive vision outlined in Article 32. Only by embracing these stronger protections can we truly say that we're standing with our immigrant students, families, and colleagues, not just when they're in their classrooms, but in every part of their lives. This is how we make our commitment to safety, equity, and justice complete. Thank you.
I would like to invite Max Sanchez to read their public comment.
Good evening. I am a teacher at Woodburn High School. Over the past 3 weeks, we have seen a dramatic increase in ICE presence and activity in our community. This has had a profoundly negative effect on our students, families, and staff, with increased anxiety around the potential for a raid on one of our schools. At the high school, our students are struggling to cope with the strain. We have seen a decrease in attendance and students reporting difficulty balancing schoolwork with the added pressure this has created. Now more than ever, we need to come together as a community to protect our most vulnerable members and support our students. Recently, school staff from both the classified and the certified unions have banded together with members of the community to form a rapid response team to look at ways we can protect our students, advocate for our families, and defend our schools. What we are proposing is bringing together stakeholders from across the district to build a community of support around our students and staff. I call on the district to work with us to create safer, more welcoming schools that meet the needs of all of our learners. The district's plan for dealing with ICE represents an excellent starting point. However, the rapid response team feels that there is room for improvement. In the first place, we need to be thinking about how we will care for students whose parents have been detained while they are at school. Secondly, we need to have contingencies prepared if ICE does not follow the law and tries to gain entry to one of our school sites or detain any of our students without a warrant or due process. Third, due to fears of being detained, many of our families are afraid to leave their homes to get groceries or run errands. As a district, we need to do more to make sure that they receive the help they need. Finally, we need to ensure that staff receive the training necessary to deal with a possible ICE raid and the aftermath of such an event, including trauma-informed instruction as well as professional development around rights and advocacy. During this incredibly difficult time, it is essential that we work together to protect our students, staff, and community. If anyone is interested in having a discussion about the work of the Rapid Response Team, please do not hesitate to reach out to me for more information. Together, we can move forward and build the supportive and nurturing learning environment our students deserve. Thank you for your time and consideration.
I would like to invite Leslie Munoz to read their public statement or comment.
Good evening, Chair Ballweber and members of the board. My name is Leslie Munoz, and I have the honor of representing House District 22, which includes the communities of Woodburn, Jervis, Brooks, and North Salem. I'm privileged to serve a district where Latino residents constitute the majority, and I am deeply committed to representing their voices and their interests. I stand before you tonight with an urgent message that cannot wait. Our schools must remain safe havens for learning, and our families must know that when they send their children to school each morning, it will not be the last time that they see each other. As a state representative and the proud daughter of Mexican immigrants, I've had the privilege of fighting alongside many dedicated public servants, all of you included. My grandparents and my parents came to this country with nothing but hope, calloused hands, and an unshakable belief that hard work could build a better future for their children. They taught me that this is our home, that we belong here, and that we have the responsibility to stand up for each other, especially when our neighbors face their darkest hours. I've watched our educators stand with families. I've seen them build bridges across community when others were content to build walls. And I've witnessed firsthand their unwavering commitment to the values that make our community strong, values that have been particularly tested as we've watched the fear and heartbreak caused by the abduction and deportation of our community members. As someone who carries my family's immigrant story with me every day, I know what it means to live with the fear that a knock on the door could tear your family apart, that going to work or taking your child to school can be the last time that you see them. I've been deeply inspired by our educators' compassionate and concrete response to these challenges that have shaken our community to its core. When ICE raids threatened our neighborhoods, educators didn't just issue a statement. They organized Know Your Rights training in multiple languages, ensuring that families understood their legal protections. They understand that abduction and deportation of our community members isn't just an immigration issue. It's a human rights crisis that tears at the fabric of our neighborhoods. Our district serves immigrant families who contribute daily to the strength and vitality of our community. These families set the minimum of patriotic hard work every day, running businesses, paying taxes, volunteering in our schools, and raising children who will run and represent our future with outstanding leadership, no doubt. However, today, too many of our families live in fear of immigration raids and enforcement actions that threaten to tear apart the very fabric of our community. This fear is disrupting the fundamental promise of public education, that every child can learn in safety and peace. I'm here tonight to formally request that the school board work hand in hand with our dedicated educators to establish clear policies protecting our entire school community from immigration enforcement disruptions. Our educators and staff have consistently expressed their commitment to ensuring every student feels safe and supported.
I'm sorry, Leslie.
That's okay.
Yeah,
If you
if
need
you wanna
anything
share
from
that,
my office, I will share it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let me and my colleagues know if we can help.
Thank you. We also received one written comment, which will be distributed to the board. Okay, board reports, we will go around and each share how we are moving the district mission. Each board member will have about 1 minute to share. Annabelle, would you like to share?
This last month, it feels like quite a while ago. There were parent-teacher conferences. There was a parent club meeting over at French Prairie as well. And so mostly attending, I think, and trying to be present in school activities and functions.
Same as well, attending as many functions, but mainly as a parent. It's just enough, there's enough going on just as a parent. So mainly, I spent some time watching the board meeting that I missed last on the 14th. So I'm glad I have those resources, but mainly I attended a couple of soccer games and the school play to support our kids.
I also got the opportunity to attend some of the events and really looking forward to tomorrow's Dia de los Muertos at Washington.
I went with Jenny and Juan to Amazon's ribbon cutting. We were invited to participate in that and got a tour of the new Amazon facility, representing the Woodburn School District. Michael and I and Juan also on the Professional Development Day went and visited the K1, 2, 3, and the high school professional development to see what's going on and just kind of get a feel for what the teachers are doing and how they're working on literacy and math and things like that. And then I'm also participating in license negotiations. Okay, we will now move on to the Office of the Superintendent reports, which include a variety of reports this evening. I will turn it over to Superintendent Larios.
Thank you, Chair Ballweber. I'm going to invite up first Director Muir, our Director of Student Services, is going to be presenting a little bit about the work of her department, giving an overview of all that the department is engaged in, and then really highlighting some of the work that they're doing to work alongside of general education educators to really develop a comprehensive approach to inclusive practices and supporting all students' learning.
Good evening. So I thought I'd talk for a couple of minutes just about what Student Services does and what our job is, and then I'll talk more about the inclusive practices. So in general, the Student Services Department, we encompass all supports that remove barriers for learning in the district. Some of the things that we cover are listed up there, such as supports for academic success or social emotional success. We support special education and 504 accommodation plans for students with disabilities. School psychologists, counseling, and social workers all work towards social emotional learning supports, nursing and health services for students who might have medical concerns, and then also behavioral and mental health systems. So kind of all of that falls under student services, and all of those types of things are the things that get in the way of students learning in school. If we do our job well, we will see expected good student outcomes, right? So hopefully we'll see some increased access to grade level learning. We'll see growth in reading and math, which is obviously a big concern for us. And then improved attendance and engagement occurs. Fewer behavioral incidents will be reported. The intensity of some of those behavioral incidents should go down. Successful post-school transitions achieved. Those are the profiles and plans, like what am I going to do when I get out of high school, right? And then we should also see a decreased number of students in special education. The hope would be that we would give them all the services and supports they need. They don't need to be labeled, so to speak, as special education to get the supports they need. There's always going to be some, but we would hope that we would see a decrease. So in our system, in the education system, we have what we call the MTSS collaboration, which is multi-tiered system of supports, right? At the bottom, there's a universal support. That means every student gets that. That's the content grade level instruction that students get. It's some of the social emotional learning that counselors provide to all students, or advisory teachers in the secondary schools and the regular teachers in the elementary schools all provide social emotional learning to all students, right? And then they will differentiate depending on what students' needs are in their classrooms. Sometimes we find that that's not quite enough, so then we go to what we call targeted support, and we'll do small group instruction, academic instruction, social emotional instruction, and we do it in a small group. And then again, there's another level of that, which is intensive support, which might be individualized. And the supports from student services are in all three of those levels, right? So how do we do that? This is where professional development comes in. I think I have spent more time in the last 4 months that I've been in this job developing professional development opportunities than anything else. Some of it is for our leadership, for our administrators, understanding each of those supports, what they look like, and how do we support teachers to provide what they need to provide. We also do what's called high leverage practices for special education. These are researched practices that we know work really well for students with disabilities. And I'm doing a lot of training in what that is and how that looks and that kind of thing. The high leverage inclusive practices for general educators is what general educators do. So if The general educator, they not only have students with disabilities, they have English language learners, they have newcomers, all kinds of needs within their classrooms. These inclusive practices are things that will help to address the multitude of needs in their classrooms. And again, they're research-based practices that we support and are providing professional development. Then there's also some compliance and quality systems that ensure that we're teaching to the standards, that ensure that we are following the law when it comes to special education, especially and/or 504 for students with disabilities. And then ultimately, it's data-driven reflection. So as we look at our data, is what we're doing working? My intent is to look quarterly at that data and say, okay, this is what our assessments looked at the beginning in September, and then each quarter take a look at it and see if what we're doing is showing progress. So to give you a little more detail on the high leverage inclusive practices, they ensure equity and access, like I said. So in some cases, that's adapting curriculum and ensuring access to the core instruction. In some cases, educators collaborate so they can co-plan and/or co-teach certain activities. Inclusive environments, they foster belonging and a student voice. So we want to increase that student voice across the board. Culturally responsive practices also help us to recognize the diverse strengths of the students in their classrooms. And again, we want to be data-driven and improve and remove those barriers for students. The high leverage practices focus on collaboration, which ensures between general ed, special education, and all of the related services that might be wrapped around that student. We have ongoing assessment guides and instruction for monitoring progress. Instruction includes modeling, practice, differentiation, both in the general ed setting and in the special ed setting. And then social and behavioral supports also promote the student engagement. Those are the main 4 categories or domains of the practices. There's actually like 27 different practices that are underneath this, underneath the high leverage practices. So in a nutshell, our commitment for support services is student success. That's what we're hoping for and what we're striving for. We want to support every student in achieving success, ensure all students have the necessary supports they need, and we really want to focus on that inclusive excellence for students.
Is there any questions? I have one. On the slide where you were mentioning, you separated like key learnings, educating leadership basically.
Mhm.
And then there is also the underneath for inclusive and then also for special ed. Are there themes that have come up, whether it's for leadership, like what has come up that is necessary or that needs to be taught to leadership, and then also for just in general teachers, like just curious of what some highlight themes.
So far, I've done overviews.
Okay.
Okay. So far, with leadership, I've shared the high leverage inclusive practices and what they are and what they mean.
Okay.
I've also shared as well as the high leverage practices. So both special ed and general ed side, I shared all of that with leadership, as well as I've given those same practices I shared with the entire special education department of teachers and educators. And then I also shared the high leverage inclusive practices through principals to general education staff.
Okay.
So that's kind of an overview so far. And then my intent is I have sessions set up to teach at the conference that we do in November. So people can sign up to get more in-depth training. And then in addition to that, for administrators, I've started the process of basically everything a principal needs to know about special education in 504.
Okay. Thank you.
So for professional development, you mentioned that you're developing that, I guess that training plan for the district.
Yes.
So do you have the resources to, so is it all done in-house or do we ever contract with a third party to get that information?
I do contract with third parties.
Okay, thanks. I guess that was my, do you have the resources to create engaging, new, cutting edge, all of those for professional development? Do you have those resources?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yes. So far, I've been collaborating with the WSD, the Willamette SD, and then also we're a member of the Urban Collaborative, which is an organization that's a nationwide organization of special education directors across and student services directors across the nation. And they have membership meetings twice a year, so I access them a lot for this kind of professional
I see.
development
Okay.
and what other districts are doing.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any questions? Currently, how many special education students do we have in the district?
Approximately 740.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
We're at about 15, 16%.
No? Okay. Thank you so very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
We'll copy them all.
I will, thank you, Director Muir. Next, we'll invite up Director Woolley. Make it up here in one piece. We want to welcome Director Woolley, Director of Safety Operations and Communications, to highlight some of the very real, tangible approaches and protocols that we have in place to ensure that our schools are safe, welcoming environments for all students.
Yeah, and before we dive in there, I think it's important, there's kind of two things that I want to preface this with that, you know, the Woodburn overall community in the district, we're very lucky. It's been very supportive of safety, and it's very relevant because with like the passing of the bond, which we really talk about the physical plants, that was really a focus on physical safety. It allowed for a lot of upgrades for vestibules and technology and things like that. And that shows the commitment from our community, from our board around that. And the other piece that's important to understand is that the procedures that are in place have been the procedure that the Woodburn School District has used for a very long time. It's nothing new. It's the process that we've used regarding how people access our sites. So I think it's just important to talk about, you know, briefly the physical part. We're going to really focus on the emotional safety tonight, but the physical safety, just because we're talking about the emotional safety piece of it, doesn't mean we don't keep the other ball in the air. It doesn't mean that we're still not practicing or drilling. I put the standard response protocols in there for you just to kind of make you aware that yes, we're still doing those. We're doing our monthly drills. We're training our staff. We're training our students. We push those out to parents. That is the emergency protocols that we use. We have very real, tangible, and great relationships with police, with fire, with ambulance. We do real-time kind of exercises with them. So if an emergency were to come about, communication is there. So from a physical standpoint, we continue with all that behind the scene work with our schools, with our students, so that nothing is kind of, when it gets into that chaotic moment, we have some muscle memory that we know how to react. And I think that's important to note. And so we've discussed that in previous settings. We're going to focus tonight a little bit more on the emotional safety, and that kind of can go through a couple different departments. Student Services touched a little bit on a portion of that when it talks about the commitment that school board has made and the district has made on school psychologists, school counselors, school social workers, and kind of the wrap services that we can do to help people feel safe and get them services. We really want to talk tonight about accessing our sites. If you live in our district, you've probably seen the attendance matters, correct? Attendance matters. The state of Oregon is really pushing attendance. And we also have to think of, we want our stakeholders to come into our schools when we're having parent engagements. And so we want our schools to be sacred places where they can come, leave anxiety at home, and come in. So we really want to talk about our law enforcement, how and when they access, and we'll talk about federal agencies. But I want it to be very tangible for people to understand that there are procedures, there are protocols. We've had them in place, I think, before I was in this role, and we will continue to follow those. And I put them in, I tried not to put a lot of information in the packet because I think it's very important to be concise and clear with this. I don't want it to get lost in any kind of minutia. I don't want it to get misinterpreted. And so we've kept it pretty clear. When it comes to law enforcement, our process has been the same for a long time. child abuse, if a law enforcement is investigating child abuse, legally, they have a right to come in and access. And that's for the protection of the child, right? Because there's oftentimes outside factors that may be putting them in harm's way that we need to get them immediate help. And the other one is that if there's imminent threat or harm that's going to happen either at school or to the self, they get access. We would let law enforcement have access. So if you think imminent threat or harm, you're thinking weapon, and we've seen those before. We've had those. It's unfortunately something that we live with in this day and age. So are the two primary factors that would allow an investigatory, and WPD is amazing. We haven't had any issues. They follow these protocols and have since I've been in this role and before. So if you think of what's an example of wouldn't, if maybe one of our students decided to visit another city and do something maybe they shouldn't have that wouldn't rise to an imminent threat or child abuse, they would not come to our school, investigate that kind of activity at a school. Because imagine what would happen if our schools kind of became the place where people knew they could go and investigate. Attendance, those kinds of things would go down. So we kind of have to hold those sacred. And so the process is, in those cases, and we'll get in there, and it's listed in there, if a law enforcement agent comes, they don't have a judicial subpoena or a warrant, they call the district office. Somebody from the district office would come over, they would interact with this person because an administrator still has a school to run. They can't just put the school on hold while they manage this. So they call over. This is where it's through multiple departments. If they have a subpoena, they contact HR, it gets vetted with legal to make sure and then the person from the DO would help kind of navigate that process so the administrator can still manage the school. Comes to federal agencies, it's the same kind of process. They check in at the office. If they have a subpoena, they would contact the HR department. HR department would then vet that while somebody from the DO would then come over and interact so that the school could go on being a school. People ask, you have to think back to our emergency procedures, right? Think what would we do if people were accessing our schools that weren't supposed to and we didn't know who they were? We'd go into a lockdown. That would trigger the police to show up. So we do have these safety protocols in place that if we have people accessing a school that we don't know who they are, we don't know what they're doing, they don't present themselves. That's not what would probably happen in this case. But sometimes people like to play that kind of game. Well, what would happen if this happened? What if somebody were to jump over the fence and, well, that's why we practice the lockdown procedures. That's why we do those things. That's why we have these safety protocols in place. That's why we have holds. That's why we have secures. That's why we have lockdowns, so we can do those pieces. So we have those procedures, and schools are really, really good at practicing those and communicating those. They go through them at the first of the year. They share out the protocols in place. And those aren't new protocols that came up this year. They've been in place for quite a while. There's a lot of anxiety about it, and there should be. And so our goal is to be very transparent and communicate it out with people. So hopefully that anxiety can go down so they feel safe. So they do come in. Living in the community, I have access to the community rapid response team. Some of you may know who that is here. And they're really good with communicating with me at the district. So when those things happen in the community, they call me immediately and they share information with us so that we can wrap around as a district, because there's things that they can't do that we can do. And so I feel very fortunate that they call myself and I get a hold of Superintendent Larios. And then we figure out what kind of services we can help wrap around from a student perspective. And then they share with what they're doing. And we're able to, within a relatively short amount of time, be able to access and support families. So there are processes for those things that go in place. Sometimes there may not be a name to it, but we have the processes. So if an emergency situation happens, if somebody gains access to a school that isn't supposed to be there, list whatever it is, this is what you would do. Likewise, if something were to happen to a family and we were made aware that there was nobody at home for that family to go to, there is a process. You would go through their emergency contact list. You would try to contact their family. You would try to see what our homeschool contacts know that, with our admin know that. And then we would, if that doesn't work, we would have a list of support services that would help us care for those child. It may not be tied directly to immigration or this or that. But unfortunately, I'm old. I've been in the district long enough where we've had unfortunate situations where we've had families get in car wrecks. And there isn't anybody at home. We have to work with emergency families, or we have to sit with the kids at school till 8 o'clock at night until a family member can come, or we have to get a support service to come. So we have we know that process to go through. It may not have an acronym that if this happens, if that happens, but those emergencies are there. So again, tonight's wasn't about, man, that goes fast. Tonight's wasn't about the physical plant. This was more about the emotional safety of the plant. And to be clear, you have to check into the office. You have to have a vetted subpoena. And that's true for law enforcement, like it's always been. It's true with us having to follow the Oregon sanctuary law. And we're not asking admin to juggle that and juggle their school. Rapid response right over to that school. They get support from the district office, and then we intervene and do that. And if we have to use one of our standard response protocols, a hold, a secure, or a lockdown, then that's what we have to do to keep our kids and our staff safe. That's why we have those.
Thank you, Casey. Is there questions?
I know in the last newsletter, Superintendent Larios had included something with obviously the safety and with obviously the recent things that have been also happening with immigration. But what are the other ways that parents are being informed of all these protocols that we have in place? Because one thing is sometimes the students will go through a drill, but they don't necessarily always and all tell their parents. So what are the other, besides the newsletter?
So we push it out at a district level, but then they're also pushed out at the school level. Either elementary I think uses class, some of the elementaries use Class Dojo, they use Remind. They should be also going out during that registration time. We also put them out at like the safety fair whenever there's tabling, when we're asked to come to do tabling, we'll have our standard response protocols and those things. So they're pushed out by us. You'll see from an emergency response, those kind of protocols. If you follow us, Daisy, we've created a number of things, from bus safety to pedestrian to bike to train to standard response protocols to all those. We've also pushed out all the ones around the resources for immigration. They've went out too on those social medias. They've went out at the building level as well. There's access to those supports on our website as well that they can get access to. If you have ideas that are another way, shoot them my way and we'll see what else we can do. But we try to push those out at any of the major community events that we're asked to go to. We try to have those kind of flyers and those kinds of connections. Any other ideas that you may have, let us know. I try to work with the local, also with my local connections, and push them out to them so they can get it out to families that maybe social media and website isn't the best way. So also working with FAMU so they can get physical hard copies if they want a piece of paper if they need it. One of the upsides to, I still have a minute. One of the upsides to doing digital is that we can push it out on the platform and it can come in the language of transition. So you'll notice in some of the communication pieces that we've been trying to push out, that Daisy and I have been trying to push out, is educating people on how to change their browser language history, because some people don't know that if you click here. So we're trying to push an education piece out on the stuff that we do, that you can change how you receive this. Some people already know it, but we've had a number of people reach out to us. Why don't you translate this? And we're like, well, actually you can. So we're trying to do more education. Communication is one of those things where your safety and communication, you're never done, right? You can't be stagnant. So if you can come up with ways from a communication to get it out to more people, just let me know, please.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, we can't protect what we don't fully understand. And so my question is, do we have any data showing where students and staff still feel unsafe? And if so, what are we doing about it?
We have the Youth Truth Survey data that we get some issues around that we tried to.
Yeah, that's the
think we
survey that's opened up now, so you'll be seeing that coming out to collect some feedback on how students are feeling about a large variety of topics about in school. We also monitor like our attendance data, and that's an indicator if students are feeling safe or not coming to school, and then we could take action on like what's happening there, and if there's dips, who's dipping and why, and like follow up through empathy interviews and through speaking with the families about attendance. And so I know we did do a snapshot of what last week's attendance looked like, and undoubtedly there were some individuals who were impacted individually by their attendance, but overall as a system, as a district, we didn't see a change in attendance.
And a lot of those are, the schools do a lot of really good job on doing that kind of gathering of data too. So we have some district tools that we use, but the schools gather some of that data individually too.
No, we only have 30 seconds left, but so in preparing your staff to deal with, for example, ICE, or I guess, what are we doing to measure their level of preparedness? I know there's drills, I know that there's training, but what are we doing to ensure that everybody's on the same page? Or have you identified weaknesses potentially or areas of improvement? I guess.
It was specific to how they feel about this topic.
Sure, or ICE, exactly.
I mean, I think as it pertains to this, their level right now, everybody's level of comfort is very low. So that's the big lift right now. As you saw, listening to people talk tonight, that's the partnership that we need to do to get everybody kind of on the same page, feeling comfortable and feeling, okay, we have a common understanding of what's going on. So so people don't feel like there's nothing, because there are processes in place. So just sharing them, getting feedback, and moving forward with that.
So in your evaluation, are we ready?
Yeah, I do. I think that we have the processes in place that if they were to show up on our campuses, we've been drilling, we know what to do. If they were to come, our admin know how to handle it and they know how to call for help.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I want to just call out and give some kudos and praise to like our high school team. They're not here right now in the room, but they developed a really comprehensive. Oh, Dwayne's here. Okay, good.
Nah, I
Thank you,
saw Dwayne back there. I didn't want to say it.
Put together a really comprehensive safety plan for their campus, and they walked through it with staff, presented it, answered questions, went through the what ifs to make get the questions answered that people might have, and that's a process that's been utilized now and replicated in other buildings as well, so that we can walk through it, talk through it. If there's a question, let's surface it, let's walk through, identify what people might be sitting on, and like if there's a question there, let's bring it forward and answer. And if we don't have the answer right away, then let's process and how are we going to develop the answer. This is an ongoing learning, but the teams have really worked really well to put together some really comprehensive plans.
I mean, we can always do better, right? That's the thing with safety. We can always prepare better, but we have processes that we can use if confronted with these things.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Casey.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Woolley. Okay, our next report, I'm going to invite up Assistant Director Pete to join us to highlight some of the work of the attendance committee. The work to improve attendance is not anything new to us in our district. It's been an ongoing process for years and years and years. What changed a little bit last year was a more unified approach to that, and a developing of a comprehensive approach to here's how we're going to handle attendance as an entire district. And so last year that launched, we're in the second year of this plan. And so tonight we'll be highlighting some of the work of the district attendance team this year, and how they're working collaboratively with schools to put this all into place.
Good evening, board. Thanks for having me tonight. I'm here to talk about the work of the district attendance committee, like Juan shared. This slide, I know you guys have seen this before between either me or Chrissy. Every time we pull any team together, whether it's like committees, work groups, or if we're presenting, we always like to tie our work back to the strategic plan, and then our district goals. So in terms of the attendance team, we highlight the academic benefits. Obviously, if the students are here, then we can teach them and help them get closer to these goals throughout their career. And we really root most of our work in that second bullet point, which is fostering our culture of engagement and partnerships. And you've heard Director Woolley talk about that, and Michelle talked about that too in her presentation, that collaboration and that making sure that everybody feels included and welcomed and in a safe environment is running as a theme through all of our departments. So I hope that that is clear to you, what a commitment that is on our end from the district. This is tied to our specific student outcome goals. So again, we have the academic goals there because again, if they're not here, then it's very difficult to teach them. So increasing our literacy scores, which is a key to a lot of our work, our biliteracy seal certificates and recognition numbers, and then of course our 68% goal for regular attenders. And I'll talk a little bit more about how we came to that particular number, but those are the main student outcome-based goals for 2025-26 that we tie our work into. So this is the creation, this slide depicts like how and why we landed on 68%. So if you look at the picture, the graph on the right, well, my right, you can see the trajectory over years. So last year we ended up at about 64% for regular attenders. But we had a 6% jump, which was amazing growth. Like we've had really steady growth the last few years. And so we're feeling strong. So we decided to again make a pretty rigorous goal, which is 68%, which is a 4.35% increase. And the thing I really want to know is that when we sat down, well, when Cabinet and Superintendent Lario sat down with ODE a couple years ago and they built out the longitudinal growth goals, the state set it at 61% for this year. We've already smashed that goal. So we were like, let's keep going. So we set it to 68%. And again, our trend data shows that that should be a rigorous but attainable goal. So that's what we're aiming for. This is today's data. It's technically yesterday's data because it takes 24 hours to sync, but we're sitting at 70% right now for regular attenders. So that means that all the kids who have attended 90% or more of school. So it's not the same as our daily percentage rate. And I know that's sometimes confusing to people. So that's what the goal is based on. What percentage of kids come regularly as defined by the state. So we're at 70% right now, but if you see the negative 0.38 means at this time last year, we're actually 0.38% lower than we were. So again, we know we have a lot of work to do. We know we need to keep putting our foot on the gas pedal, if you will, because we have that 68% goal to reach by the end of the year. So again, we knew it was a rigorous goal, but we're still confident we can make it. So the next slide is going to talk about, okay, but what does the committee do then to help us reach that goal? And these are the main objectives of that team, the district team. So Jenny, did we skip a slide? Sorry, slide 4. Oh, sorry. I just realized, I never talked about everybody else. So this is the organizational chart for the attendance committees. So in the top on the green is the district leadership team, but you'll see each school has a team of people. This represents dozens of people's work across the district. So each site has their own attendance team, and then they have an identified lead or leads that serve on the district leadership team. So it's a reciprocal relationship of on the ground site work happening and then them bringing to us like what's working, what's not working, and then the district team setting some parameters on and some common agreements on how we're going to approach our attendance work. And it, like I said, it reciprocates back and forth, but this is the full team. I mean, it's a huge group of people working to make this happen. And then of course, every single staff member has a role to play, but these are the official team members at each site and then the district team. Sorry, Jenny. So now if you can skip back down to this one, yeah. So all the people in green and then at the building sites, those people in blue are working on these things. So we're talking about MTSS strategies. I know Michelle referenced MTSS in her presentation as well. So we're, from our lens, thinking about attendance and what are those tiered supports that students have. We're also focusing on creating a welcoming, inclusive school. Again, another theme you've heard tonight. Tracking attendance rates monthly, we're actually doing that weekly, and you should hopefully be seeing that in your school's newsletters too. They're doing a really good job of sharing that even at the school level. Conducting surveys to measure student sense of belonging. So I know that was a question that just came up. We use Youth Truth like as the district standard for student sense of belonging and safety and things like that. But then a lot of schools have developed, based on their own student context and needs, specific questions like, do you feel like a valuable member of your school? I know that was one of the things that Lincoln was really focused on last year. So again, we kind of look at stuff at a district level, and then the schools contextualize it for their own site. And then then they're providing professional development to teachers and staff and allocating resources to support all this work. So this slide, I think you've also seen from probably at least Chrissy, if not also Juan. This is our year-long, what we call the placemat. And it guides, basically it's a roadmap for our work for the year. And on the left-hand side is our professional development plan as a district. And if you see in August and September, the first month and a half of school, really all we were focused on is creating that sense of belonging and setting up the conditions for learning. So that is directly tied to our attendance work. That was kind of our big push. So we monitored some of these specific things in the classroom, like did they have posted behavior expectations? Were they praising students for the work that they were doing? Or when they were following expectations? Did students have a lot of opportunities to respond in class so that it was clear to them that their participation was important? So those are some of that's kind of the bedrock of building out the rest of the year, is making sure that all the students know that it's important for them to be there and that they're an essential player in the classroom. And then obviously we also partner that with our attendance data to kind of see what are we doing in the classroom and how is that impacting our attendance overall. And there's the attendance goal. So our goals are in there. So I know one of the other things that the team is really committed to is the partnerships between families, and then also communication to the broad community. So the mechanisms we have for that we usually use are the school newsletters, the district newsletter. We put an article in there about attendance this last month. Conferences, of course, was a key time for people to talk about attendance. Reviewing that with each student that came in some cases, maybe having tiered conversations, so like all students had that conversation with their classroom teacher, but then maybe some parents or family members had a different conversation with a counselor and administrator or things like that. You've probably seen some of these Everyday Matters signage. I think somebody else brought that up tonight. So we have there's a lot out there, and that's through a partnership with the WESD, and then also work with ODE that there's a big push for that Everyday Matters. So you've probably seen that around too. And then in that bottom right-hand corner, I just want to point out, this was something that came out of the committee right out the gate this year. They said, we want to make sure that the homeschool contacts have a lot of resources, community resources that they know they connect families with, but not necessarily everybody, all the staff members know that that's a thing, right? And so, or even all the families. So they were like, we want a one pager that just gives an overview of some of the basic things. So we made that. I know some of the buildings use it at conferences. So just making sure that we're being flexible and responsive as much as possible and responding to the community needs and what all the committee members are bringing to the table. And then I think the last slide is just kind of circling back on that MTSS idea and pointing out that all students are getting some of that Everyday Matters, that check-in about their attendance, the communication from schools about what their attendance rates are. Some families, those kids who are starting to fall into danger of not being regular attenders, they're only sitting at low 90s or upper 80% in their attendance rates. Those guys are getting phone call homes or letters. They might be on an attendance plan. And then some students who were like, oh man, we really got to make sure we get on this family and these kids so that they realize how important it is for them to be here. Having those root cause analysis conversations with them through empathy interviews so we can understand what barriers may be impacting their attendance. That's it. 9 seconds.
Other questions?
Starting off with what you just said, where you just ended, what are some of the barriers that have come up?
We have I can speak like anecdotally, but I would really like to have an actual compilation of some of the empathy interviews. So I think I could probably follow up with
Yeah.
Jenny and Juan with some actual,
That's-
it's hard to say data because it's like all
Yeah.
qualitative. Yeah. But yeah, we can try to compile some themes that we're hearing from like log entries and conversations that we've had.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Going back to the slide where it had all the members for the different schools.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a reason why, like Washington, I remember had like three, like the difference in numbers, and then I don't know if the committee part just meant that those were the members that are part of the committee. Like I didn't see it across all the schools.
Sure.
Curious on
Yeah, there is definitely variability on like how schools approach this. So like, for example, at Washington, they might only have those people that are on the official committee, but they're tapping other staff for some of the actions that are embedded in the other teams. Does that make sense? So they might not all be on the committee, but then they're like, oh, you make these phone calls or you send these letters, but they're not on the committee. Does that make sense? So they're still doing the same work, but maybe they're doing it in a different way, or maybe they're handling it through another committee. Sometimes they partner committees up together. So that could be one reason. I will say Washington had some of the highest rates last year. So whatever they're doing, they made it work, even with a small committee.
And
Yeah.
if I may, just with one more question.
I should go for it.
With that, are the conversations happening between the schools when they are making some of those decisions themselves to share what are some of the effective things that are tools basically, so that we can share that? And not that I want to necessarily keep all the schools to the same things, because it will block some creativity and things that could really work, but at the same time really wanting to make sure that there's some kind of uniformity and also peer learning.
Yeah, that's like you've encapsulated the tension of that team, because we want to have as much continuity as we can, especially in some of the logistics of like when letters go out and like what our response is, and like not having people reinvent the wheel. And yet people have to be able to be responsive to their school context and what they have. So yes, we spend, I don't know, at least a quarter to half of the meeting usually sharing celebrations, spotlighting different schools. Hey, I heard this school did it this way, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a number of reports. The next report on our integrated plan annual progress, I'll be giving in place of Director Chapman, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight. And this is an annual report that we provide to the board, an update on our progress on the integrated plan. And you'll see in the memo, the integrated plan, just as a reminder, has several different parts to it. There are 6 different parts: the high school success, student investment account, the continued improvement, career technical education, and everyday matters in the early intervention support system. And you'll find that in the memo that came with this report. And so annually, we have to provide to the board an update on some of the progress and our response to these narrative questions. And the first narrative question has to do with the progress markers and us identifying somewhere that we've seen some progress in our implementation. This year, we chose to highlight communication and the engaged community aspect. You've heard this throughout this presentation tonight. From Director Woolley, from Assistant Director Pete, on how communication is being utilized and how we're aligning communication across our district and the work that's happening there. That we've seen a lot of progress over the last year on the alignment of the communication tools, from the newsletters to staff and as newsletters to families, which I hope now all the board members are receiving those weekly newsletters that are going out from schools, and using those as tools to convey our progress on our goals. You'll see that in the snapshots that are being included for attendance. You've seen them for literacy as well. And using the tools of the committees that exist right now through the parent advisory, the FAMU, tapping into the site councils, and really trying to take the more organized approach to communication and community outreach. And so we've chosen to highlight that in this first response to our progress, one of our progress markers for the integrated plan. Our second one that we respond to is barriers. And again, this is going to be information that the board has previously heard, but we think about what's been a barrier for our implementation and progress. And one of those places that we identified was our assessment system. Last year, working alongside of educators, we realized that the assessment tools that we were using weren't providing us the level of data that we needed to have discrete gaps identified to provide targeted interventions and supports for students. So we've come and to develop a new assessment system, which we're moving forward this year, which will allow us to identify those discrete skills that our students need to continue to focus in on for literacy instruction, particularly. So we could develop targeted intervention systems like what or Director Muir was referring to, and with the work that she's doing to integrate. And the staff that she chose to highlight tonight are a part of that work, where they're working alongside special education, general education, reading interventionists to come up with like a comprehensive approach to providing interventions between the different tiers. So that's the progress, the barrier that we've identified, and the work that we're doing to eliminate that barrier. So this next question that we reflect upon is our progress on those longitudinal performance growth targets. This is data that we've shared with our community. We've shared with the board previously how we have met or exceeded 4 of the 5 growth targets. However, we have not yet met the reading one for 3rd grade, and we have some work to do there. We've seen some areas of success that give us promise for hope that we're on the right track, but we recognize that there is some significant work that still needs to be done for 3rd grade literacy and reaching that longitudinal performance growth target. But we're happy about where we are in terms of the other ones, which we've met or exceeded for attendance, 9th grade on track, the 4-year graduation rates, 5-year graduators as well, which is hopeful because like, hey, this is working over time. Over time, we're getting kids to where they need to be able to graduate. So some of the changes that we are implementing, you've heard reference to the standards of practice. We're continuing to refine those, work alongside of educators to come up with those really concrete tools that identify what literacy instruction looks like, sounds like in classrooms, and really supporting teachers to be utilizing those in their classrooms. And that happens through the professional development days. It was really neat to have Michael and Debbie join as we visited some of those literacy instruction for staff. And it was really cool that you were there to see that learning happening in action. You saw some of the K-1 early literacy professional development, as well as the 2-3 professional development happening for bridging. And we're thinking of recognizing that we have language learners, multilingual learners in our classrooms. And it's important for us to know the discrete language skills that they have and how we're utilizing those to bridge together to progress their reading instruction. Working really closely with Oregon RTII experts in literacy to come and provide that professional development, to work alongside of our teams to develop those standards of practice, utilizing that new assessment system, the STAR assessment. It's our first year, but we're really excited about the data that's providing for us. The K-8 intervention system, which is a new system as well. We've talked about that previously, shared a little bit of it with the board. But that's another significant shift that we've done, as well as the work with getting all that data together into the Oregon Data Suite and using it in a comprehensive way. So this is a bit of a snapshot of the changes and practices that we're using this year. And we're going to continue to monitor our progress and continue to make shifts and changes into what we're doing to continue to improve our outcomes for kids.
Thank you, Superintendent Larios. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I wasn't sure what you meant by reprioritizing standards for the 5th grade literacy. I think, what was that last bullet point on the very last slide? Can you expand on what a reprioritized standard would be? Reprioritize language arts standards, revise unit assessments for K through 5.
So depending on where our students are in their learning, like how do we prioritize which standards? Like we use our assessments to know where they're at. And based on that, we're prioritizing what we're going to provide for kids. So looking at our assessments, looking at our kids, and identifying the needs that they have for the standards.
And does the STAR assessment system help you answer those questions?
The
Do the-
the STAR assessment system helps us to really get into the discrete skills that kids need to define the interventions. It's really helpful for that. It's helpful for us to monitor the health of our instruction as well, and to start to develop those small groups. So we have our unit assessments, which support for that bullet, but the STAR assessment system is really more for that targeted support. So we definitely don't want to be stagnant and just continue to do what we do year after year. We want to continue to evaluate. The assessments we have are really important for us to know how well we're doing. Our student outcomes are based on our, the adult work that's happening. So how do we continue to support the adults, to support the students, and to build that, cascading impact down to the classroom?
Any other questions? Thank you, Superintendent Larios. Last, we have financial report from the business office. We invite Director Bishop up to present.
You said last, but certainly not least.
No, not least. No, no.
I'll be honest, the September and October financial reports are probably the most boring ones. Not that there's anything typically exciting in the world of school finance, but property taxes haven't come in. The year's just started. Really, the only expenditures we're seeing are payroll encumbrances in the start of the school year. So you'll see in revenue, it looks like, oh my gosh, we haven't received anything. Well, of course we haven't. It's the beginning of the year. Your property taxes, you probably just got notified that they were paid out of your mortgage escrow account if you have one. And if not, you're probably gearing up to pay it. So you'll see that in our November or December financial report. Again, nothing terribly exciting to report, but of course, I'm always open to questions.
Are there any questions?
I know we're concerned with federal funding, but has the federal shutdown impacted anything?
The federal shutdown hasn't impacted us whatsoever at
Okay.
this point. Again, we're not super concerned with federal funding for this fiscal year
Yeah, that's right.
because this fiscal year was already funded at the federal level last year, if you may. So
But-
everything that's happening now would affect us next
I
year.
guess specifically the shutdown and potentially loss of SNAP benefits and how that's affecting our families and
Yes, correct. That would affect our families for sure. At
But-
this
but not
moment
the
in
budget.
time, it doesn't affect us.
Got it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda are confirmation items presented as follows. 1, meeting minutes of September 23rd, 2025, regular board meeting. 2, personnel. 3, surplus property disposal report. 4, funding proposals and applications, which includes Marion Cultural Development Corporation grant Cosecha Mestiza. Do we have any questions? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adopt the confirmation items as presented.
I move to adopt the confirmation items as presented.
I second.
All in favor of adopting the confirmation items as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Next on our agenda, we have board action items. Starting with old business, we have the policy update second reading. Superintendent Larios, can you please present the second reading of the policy update with recommendations?
Yeah, in your packet tonight, you'll find the policies coming back for the with the recommended language. There's not a whole lot here that's too terribly exciting or different. I do want to highlight a few of the policies and something that might be different in some of them. I want to draw the board's attention to the DBEA, the Budget Committee. There is new language there that identifies that a member of the Education Equity Committee would be sitting on the Budget Committee. That's a committee that's been formed this year and has started some work. So we'll have to be conscious about appointing somebody from that committee onto the budget committee. So I want to put that on the board's radar. The change in the sick leave as well. Previously, it was at the district's discretion whether or not to require a doctor's note after five consecutive absences. It's now a requirement to require a doctor's note after 5 consecutive absences. So that's a change there I want to put on the board's radar as well. There's nothing else too terribly exciting about any of the other ones. There are changes that are small, minor to update with some legislation that's been passed. I do want to point out or give the board an opportunity to discuss too and share about the policy that's there for board member stipends, which is a new policy. That's or some updates to language there to be able to discuss as well.
Your questions or discussion? So my understanding, and Jenny, you might have a little more information on this, on the board member stipends, we need to have policy that has to be a budgeted amount, correct? Or how does that work? Can you explain that?
Yes,
So the board
so
understands that.
a district can have this policy, and this is based on what the law that passed. But in order for a board to receive the stipend, it has to be budgeted for when the board adopts the budget. So you can't just give yourselves a stipend if it hasn't been budgeted for. So for example, tonight you're potentially adopting this policy. Because we didn't add stipends to the budget, the board cannot give themselves stipend this school year. If the board would like to explore giving yourselves a stipend, we would need to do that during budget season to add it to the budget. And then the policy also clarifies or mentions that individual board members can also decline that stipend. So if the board budgets for it and the budget passes, once the business office receives that, then you can let them know directly that you would like to decline the stipend. So tonight, if you do adopt it, it's mainly just to have as a policy. We didn't budget for it, so you wouldn't be able to give yourselves a stipend. Can I also add something for policy, the budget committee policy? So this year in July, we did declare vacancy. So once we have the committee going and we know who's going to be appointed for that, we need to revise that vacancy that we declared so that you would appoint someone from the committee, since that's a requirement now that after tonight that you'll be adopting that policy. So I just want to get that on your radar that although we have a vacancy, you'll have to fill it with someone from that equity committee.
Any other questions about these policies? Not, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, since I'm not hearing anything either, I'll move to adopt the policy updates as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the policy updates as presented. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of adopting the policy updates as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Okay, moving on to new business. Superintendent Larios, can you please present the Division 22 Standards Report?
And in your board packet, you'll find what we refer to as the Division 22 Standards Report. And annually, we take an opportunity again to review our practices as it relates to the public education standards set by the State of Oregon Department. And what I want to point out tonight is that we found what I wanted to share tonight is that we are out of compliance in one of those standards, referring to the substance abuse prevention plan. While many of the components were in place and are happening, we didn't have a written plan. So we are in a state of completing that written plan so that we could be in compliance with that standard. And you'll see all the different standards that are listed on the subsequent pages of that board memo, which we are in compliance with. This was an annual presentation that comes to the board by November 1st to give an update on here's where we are in our implementation of these state standards of instruction.
Chair, if I may add, this report should have been added to reports and I accidentally added it to new business. So there's no action required tonight by the board.
So we'll provide these assurances, but yeah, thank you, Jenny. No action required.
So I notice on here that the essential skill assessments are waived through the end of the 27-28 school year. Does that mean they're coming back as part of the diploma requirement?
Well, we'll see. I think it's safe to say that, based on the conversations that are happening with the accountability, that they'll be coming back.
Are there any other questions about the Division 22 report? No? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to future agenda items. Do we have any requests for future agenda items?
I do. Given, with a lot of things that are going on, and I know that the school board had approved the Safe and Welcoming Schools. However, majority of us are new board members, and I'd like to bring that up to be able to reaffirm that as a whole board that is now currently on here.
Okay. Any other future agenda items? Okay, we will discuss that at our Friday meeting. Moving on to our board calendar, listed below our upcoming board meetings. November 18th, 2025 is our regular board meeting at 5:45 p.m. and on December 9th, our regular board meeting at 5:45 p.m. At this time, we will recess the regular meeting for an executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602D to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations. Thank you so much for coming. Good night. Night, bye. community. I now call the regular meeting back to order. Thank you, everyone, for your time this evening. With no other agenda items listed, I now move to adjourn the meeting at 7:54 PM.